Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Hello, Sixers, and welcome back to episode 77 of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. Today is February 15th, 2021. I am Bill, and I am joined, as always, by my mind-blown co-hosts, Amy and Jordan. Welcome, guys.
Very appropriate, yes.
Indeed. Before we get started, we do want to remind you, particularly tonight, that the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is not a spoiler-free podcast. That means if there is something in the Cosmere you haven't read and are worried about hearing spoilers, you might want to go read those first, then come back and join the discussion. Seriously, tonight there will be huge spoilers. Tonight we are going to be continuing our discussion of Rhythm of War, focusing on Dalinar, Szeth, Jasnah, Hoid, and Taravangian.
Dun, dun, dun.
For those of you who listen to the podcast recordings or watch the videos on YouTube, we do want to remind you that it's possible for our listeners to interact with us live via chat as we record each episode at www.twitch.tv/InnkeepersTable. We record episodes of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies every other Monday night, starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, so please join us and take an active part in the discussion. The Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is made possible by the support of our listeners and patrons. The show will, of course, continue to be free, but if you want to help us out, head on over to patreon.com/Cosmere Studies. You can pledge $1 or $2 per episode, or whatever you can pledge. It really helps us out as we work to improve the show. Patrons get immediate access to our Discord channel where you can talk about the show and the Cosmere with other listeners. It's a great community with a lot of great discussions, and you also get early access to bonus episodes, exclusive access to other bonus content, and other good stuff. Okay, guys. We've been holding off on this one for a while. Why have we been saving this one?
Because it's mind-blowing, as you said.
What are you talking about? I mean, nothing really important happens here.
It's so much. There's so much cool stuff that happens. The problem is, you almost just only want to talk about Taravangian and Ishar the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, there's still cool stuff that goes on with Jasnah. There's very interesting Szeth stuff. There's very interesting Dalinar stuff.
Great moments.
But
There's
those
Hoid stuff too.
those two, yeah, geez, the Hoid on top of that. But Taravangian and Ishar and what they're up to is just so interesting.
What are you talking about? Taravangian is just sort of sitting in jail the whole time.
Yeah, just the whole time.
Nothing
and then
interesting
then he
happens
just
with
dies out of nowhere. It's tragic.
Yeah, I mean, like, Taravangian died, and I was just like, you know what? I'm sick of this. I put the book down, walked away, because nothing interesting was going to happen after that.
No, we know it's not the case.
Okay, fine.
Lies.
Yeah, big things
Lies.
happen.
Not a good lie.
I feel like this is the book where Brandon's just like, okay, these are all the questions people keep asking me. Let's just, knock all of these out of the way so they have to come up with new questions to speculate on.
Yeah, I didn't see anyone in the tinfoil hat theory areas going, yeah, Taravangian's going to become odium. I didn't see anyone who had that on their bingo card.
Taravangian is going to grab Nightblood and stab Odium, kill Race, and become the new Odium. Yeah, that wasn't on anybody's bingo card.
Didn't guess that one, no.
No.
Oh man.
But maybe we should go back a little bit.
Yeah, let's step back and sort of take things sort of in the order that they came. So first off, we've talked about it a few times with the whole battle of Hearthstone. It's really interesting to see Dalinar has apparently over the past year been ripping perpendicularities just as a regular attack. I'm thinking fun. This is super ultimate limit break.
Over
9,000. But he does it multiple times per battle now.
just whenever. Whenever
It's just like,
needed.
this is, we'll just, poke holes in reality.
And like with the later fight, when right before the betrayal comes again, he does like one, and he focuses it so only the Windrunners get it and not the Skybreakers. So he's getting finesse too, not just I can do it, but finesse.
It's interesting.
Well, and
it's interesting just with that finesse you're talking about. I was reading a thread in trying to get to some of the Ishar stuff, and that's going to have to be its own episode almost. There's there's so some very interesting theories out there that I would love to dive into. But one of the things they talk about is how the bondsmith, his power over connection itself, in some ways, the only thing that's even remotely similar to it is hemalurgy. In that it gives you it can give you a connection you didn't once have, and there are some game-breaking things that you can absolutely do with it. And I'd never thought of it that way, but
I hadn't either.
But when you think, at one point, Ishar almost somehow took the connection as Odium's enemy from Dalinar, and just some weird powers based stuff going on. And so I don't know, we've seen Dalinar do some incredible stuff so far, but whatever's coming in book 5, I think it is going to have our jaws on the frickin' floor, and we're going to have to drag it around like a jaw on the floor. That one got away from me real quick.
that was masterful.
I'd like could I put some whiteout over that one?
Sure.
Awesome. Control Z. Let's do it.
Control Z. All right, that's been done. First off, can we talk about when Dalinar meets the mink? Because that is just such a fun scene.
I love that scene.
I absolutely loved the mink.
Mm-hmm. He's super fun.
I'm annoyed at the Cockney accent that he's been given in the audiobook.
But all of her dads has been given that accent.
Right.
I like Michael Kramer, but it's clear Michael Kramer only has about 8 voices that he can do. And
then sort of varies, minor variations.
And so he did the Cockney for Lopin, and now all her dads is stuck with it. I would have liked to have heard him try a Hispanic accent, but I worry maybe he just doesn't feel comfortable trying that. I don't know, but
I don't know.
I at least like that it's consistent.
Right. But no, the mink is absolutely wonderful, and their conversation when Dalinar and Shallan, doing their magic, let's make a map of Roshar.
Let's make a map, yay!
Do you want to make a map room?
And I love that, that's enough to... Amy, are you okay?
Yes, it's just hilarious. That's all.
Do you need a moment?
I'm good. Continue.
No, but I like how the mink immediately looks at it and he's just like, wait. Like, his mind starts turning and like, okay, how do we use this? What advantages can this give us? How detailed can this get? How much information can we get from this? Mm-hmm. And I like how frank he is with Dalinar. I like that he says, do you want me to be frank, or are you wanting me to confirm what you want? And but then he's just like, because what you want to hear and what you need to hear aren't the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things that it seems like Dalinar appreciates it too, because there's not that many people who can speak to the Blackthorn that way, who are even willing to speak to the Blackthorn.
I'm trying to think, in previous books, have we ever seen him really view someone as a tactical equal?
As a tactical equal, probably not.
I think only
diplomatic.
I think only Sadeas.
As a diplomatic equal, Queen Fen.
Yeah.
He doesn't even see the mink as a tactical equal. He sees him as superior.
We don't see his, because in that particular scene, it's Navani's point of view.
Right.
It's not Dalinar. So we don't know exactly what
But you can tell from his mannerisms.
Yeah.
I think that Dalinar believes that the mink is superior, or at least not emotionally involved. And so he's able to, he's equal, and he's able to wage this
enough.
war in a better way.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I mean,
Doc
he's
in
proven
chat also points out because he's Herdazian, the informality of them, he's willing to approach the High King of Urithiru, and he just treats him like just another general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the Mink. I feel like he's just a great character that I hope we see more of, because wow, there's so much fun to be had there. Mm-hmm. Because the Mink basically says, Dalinar, what you got to do is you've got to essentially abandon your homeland.
You got to let it go for now.
You know, you can go get it later, but right now you've got to let it go. You need to attack in Amul.
Frozen strikes again.
And then, Jordan.
You got to stop breaking me.
And then the other thing, though, is he says, also, I want your word that we'll go get Herdaz after we liberate Amul, which, you know, he's like, which means you're going to still have to leave Alethkar. Mm-hmm. And Dalinar listens.
Yeah.
You know, Dalinar is a headstrong man, but he respects this guy enough. He's just like, everything you're saying, I already knew it. I just had to hear it from somebody else.
Yeah. And I'm sure most of us have had moments like that where we just don't want to admit it out loud and somebody else goes, yeah, that's really how it is.
Mm-hmm.
You need someone to acknowledge it, not just be your cheerleaders.
Yeah, and so they gather the army. Jasnah goes along as the newly minted queen of Alethkar, which is a kingdom in exile at the moment, but she's still the queen. And so she leads the army with him, and they sneak Szeth along in a Lightweaver.
Yeah.
And
except
so
they couldn't do it to Nightblood though. He had to just be like decorated up. Instead.
He's just in a different sheath.
Yeah, because
not a different sheath, but a sort of disguised. He's disguised.
Nightblood just kept drinking the illusion.
Well, not just that, but they also lightwove somebody else to be in the jail cell to further sell the fact that Szeth wasn't there, that he was back at Urithiru.
Think of how horrible everything would have been had he still been in that jail cell. Or maybe how amazing it would have been, and it just
we don't know.
Instead of it being the story of Kaladin doing the John McClane, it's just Szeth just walking around, just being like, well, sword, you're going to have to drink some people. And it's just like, well, guess we're just drinking people today.
Well, but then Venli would have been taken out, too.
It would have been a very, very different story.
Oh, yes.
Because Taravangian also would be in a different spot. In a different body.
Yeah.
As it were.
Oh, if we want to discuss all the pieces that freaking cultivation moved, yeah. She moved a lot of pieces.
Oh, cultivation. Coravellium avast, you serpent. Slammer, as Hoyd calls her. So, you know, they bring Taravangian along, and they're relying on his armies, even though Dalinar isn't really trusting of him. And he tells the Mink this. You know, the Mink's like, you don't trust this guy. And Dalinar lets him know what's going on.
And he recognizes
of course, Taravangian.
He recognizes it through the placement of soldiers. I love that.
Yep. Because he's like, wait, if you really trust you would, if you were really doing that tactic, you would have him over here, but you're guarding your back by keeping troops in this other spot. So. Yeah.
And so Taravangian, you know, as he's leaving, this was such a cool scene, in my opinion, where he is telling all, you know, Adrotagia and Moral and all his followers, just like basically, this is what's going to happen, then this, and he's just got everything tied up in a neat little bow.
And it's not even a super smart day for him either.
No, but these are plans that he's been working on for a year, and he's had very smart days and all sorts of stuff. He set it up so that he's distanced from Carbrant, so they won't have the retribution coming on them.
Yeah, his daughter will be queen, and it won't fall on her because she's
the people in Yakavet already hate Dalinar anyway because they've been at war with the Blackthorn for, you know, who knows how long.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't even want to be in this alliance, and so.
The thing he's just moved things around, like he's switched around generals and high
it's really interesting.
Not high princes, but something equivalent like that.
I think it is high princes, isn't it?
It's high. They're the Veden high princes.
Okay.
They also have High Princes in Yakavet.
That's right.
But it's really interesting because he's basically done everything so that every bit of blame will fall on him. I'm just like, this is actually kind of noble from a certain angle.
Yeah.
You know, he's
noble
done some
sacrifice.
horrible things. You can tell in his own mind, he's doing a noble thing. He's trying to do a noble thing. Now, there's a twistedness to it that messes everything up.
And he even has a conversation with Navani where he's like, he gets in close to her and she's freaking out that he's that close to her and she's not comfortable with it at all. And he's like, I would do it again. He's like, I would kill more people if I needed to, if it served the cause. He's like, because I am doing it just for the end purpose.
Yeah.
And he has no regrets about it. Even if he doesn't like everything he did, he's all about the purpose, not the destination.
Well, and it was interesting because
he's about the destination, not the journey.
Sorry. Yeah.
Destination before journey, he says. Or not
Wording gets
literally
hard.
says, but...
Yeah, but it's interesting because his scene starts with them burning the diagram and them just being like, it's done its purpose. We're through with it. And
he burns it when they leave.
yeah. And it's just, it's one of these things that he's literally been worshiping this thing, but he's, you know, because he just, even that was only for up to a purpose.
Right.
And so
He does keep like some little snippets of it that he copied out. But,
yeah.
And he uses those strategically later. Yeah.
But it's just interesting that he's so utilitarian that even the thing that he held in such high regard is still just a thing to be used.
Yeah, it's a tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this whole situation, though, with him sending his friends off shows that they were never tools to him personally. Like he used them, but they weren't tools to be discarded. He's not without, sympathy.
He even mentions Danlin, who, as we all know, is Adolin's ex-girlfriend, who from the beginning of The Way of Kings.
And says to send her
we
on,
knew
like,
that she was involved because she showed up at the meetings with what's his name, Graves, in Words of Radiance. So we knew that she was sort of involved, but the way that Taravangian actually mentions her by name, it almost sounds like she was a sleeper agent. She was with Adolin specifically, like she was placed there.
Well, I mean, the diagram is very specific about instructions about Dalinar. They need someone on the inside because his was a breaking point for it. If he does this, do that. If he does that, do that.
Mm-hmm. It just feels like it adds a bit more gravity to the fact that she was there in the first book. It's like it's not just she happened to be involved and she was dating Adolin.
She was probably
it almost feels like she was placed there.
Yeah.
And so I find that.
Well, let's be real though. As long as you were of a correct age and highborn enough, you were going to get to date Adolin if you got into that war camp.
Yeah, you gotta be female too.
Yeah.
But.
Okay, so now in the army, there were certain people who weren't a fan of the way things were being run. I'm talking about a High Prince. Is it Ruthar?
I think
Ruthar.
Yeah.
High Prince Ruthar.
Oh.
This scene was absolutely wonderful. Just because Jasnah just is goading him and she sicks wit on him.
I want to know if Wit was rioting him.
I want to know too, because I just love though she has these just cold expression that only someone like Jasnah can pull off, and she just says wit, harsher, and it's just like she's like, I want you to get him to attack, like do not hold back. I know what you're capable of. You can do so much worse than this.
I must emotionally break you.
And Wit, each time she says it, he's just enjoying every single word. He is just gleeful as he's just verbally tearing Ruthar a new one.
Well, and it's so it's also he's so wonderfully contemptible to where there's no guilt to this. This isn't, them having to do something unfortunate because there's a man he's trying to do his best, but no, this man is on the list.
He's despicable.
Yeah, that we're okay with him dying.
They've planned for it. They have, things in place.
And that's the thing that's brilliant is that, Jasnah steps in and says, I will be the champion. So, you don't have to worry about the penalties of killing the queen's wit. Bring it on. And of course he, just blusters and he's like, you're a woman and all this stuff. And she just sticks him through the throat. Just because he's like, you've got a shard blade. She's like, I'll use this sword. And that's the other interesting thing is it's Wit's sword. Well, we know with Hoyd, he can't kill. And so he says, I believe that's the first time that sword has actually tasted blood.
Huh. That's interesting.
So she sticks him through the neck, and Renarin is on hand to come in and heal him. And it's just like, well, that was interesting. And just the fact that she's like, we are taking this as you have died. You are now a dead man walking, literally.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the fact that we get this all from Dalinar's perspective makes it so much more fun.
Well, because Dalinar had no idea, and I love that Renarin comes in. He just realizes Dalinar didn't know. Oh shoot! And he's
Dad
just like,
know.
"Sorry, Dad."
I thought you knew.
But it's so Jasnah. Because she just says, we're going to do this and expects to be followed. And everybody else thinks, well, surely she would have cleared this with Dalinar. No, she doesn't clear with Dalinar. She's the freaking queen of Alethkar and Jasnah Kholin. Of course she's not going to clear it with Dalinar.
She even, like, in there earlier in the map meeting, and she even says something to him. But she's like, because they're talking about her freeing all the slaves in Alethi and in Alethkar, and he's like, that seems pretty extreme, and she's like, go ahead and disagree with it. She's like, it's fine.
Happening.
That'll look better because they don't want you to just kowtow. They don't want me to just kowtow to you every time. Well, just like because there was that whole thing with her father, and
he refers to it as her proposition. She's like, you don't understand. I'm not proposing this to you as something that maybe I should do. This is happening. It's going to be an official proposal to the High Princes, but it's going to happen. That's just the term that I'm using.
Yeah, don't try and tap the brakes. This train's leaving the station. The conductor is Jasnah storming Kholin, so
get on or get off the tracks.
Yep. Well, and it's very much like Jasnah. She had like every roadblock Ruthar tries to put up, she's already she's already strategized. No, he'll say this, and this because they're the most logical things for him to go to, and
she's got his heirs on her side.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it was too difficult.
We also see an interesting angle on Relis. If you recall, Relis is the one who challenged Adolin to the 4-person duel.
Oh, I'd forgotten that,
yeah. And he seems like this horrible, despicable person. This gives a very interesting perspective on him because Ruthar is his father. And one of the insults that Wit throws at him talks about him being abusive.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
And so you're just like, that really puts an interesting spin on Relis as a character. And, why he thinks the way he does, why it was just a very fascinating angle that we got, just very briefly. Because suddenly he's absolutely willing to step in line and work with Jasnah on this kind of thing.
Well, it's because it's so stupid that Ruthar won't.
Well, that's the thing. They've pulled the one obstacle that Relis really has away, and that's Ruthar.
Yeah.
And so it's just very interesting to like suddenly his character takes on multiple additional levels.
Yeah. Well, because it's just so stupid because Ruthar, he was aligned with Sadeas, and with both Toril and ELA gone, it's so stupid about, to keep opposing. At this point, he's just opposing out of pure stubbornness. And even, if Relis was despicable, as we thought he was in Words of Radiance, at the very minimum, if he's at least just somewhat politically capable, he can look around, read the room, and be like, guys, we don't have any allies. This is dumb. But Ruthar is just so headstrong, and he's been bested at every turn. He just can't give it up. It's too personal when it's supposed to be business. And with Jasnah, she doesn't let it get personal. It's just business.
Speaking of Jasnah and personal, there's another scene a little bit later on.
Wow, chicka, wow, wow.
The ship that nobody expected.
Nope.
But everybody looks back and it's just like, honestly, it kind of makes sense. Wit and Jasnah sitting in a tree.
Yep.
I personally have the hashtag Witsna for that. I just... But
Yasnoid does not sound right.
Yasnoid.
Yeah, avoid the Yasnoid.
Don't do that one. Witsna. I like.
Wow. But yeah, it's just it works. I wonder how much she knows about him at this point.
Yeah.
Like how much he's told her at this point,
because told her everything. I'm sure that it's not everything. But I don't know that he would show her all the different magics that he has, just because she's pretty wise to the world, but I think that would also kind of be overwhelming too, to know everything.
Well, I mean, first of all, he couldn't show her everything because he's lived so long that she would have to live another 7 lifetimes before he could tell her everything. Now, am I saying that Jasnah won't find a way to live another 7 lifetimes? No, I'm not saying that. This is, again, Jasnah storming Khalid. She'll find a way. But
she'll find a way.
It's like, thus begins the 1,000-year reign of Jasnah Kholin.
Mistborn Era 4 is going to be their honeymoon. It's going to be this intergalactic war, and of course it's very... That'll be very interesting to see develop moving forward. And we're going to see more about that in the next book. I don't think that's something that Brandon would just sort of tease.
No.
And then just
leave alone.
Well, but the thing is that I like about it is I don't think that she needs to ask him everything and vice versa. She's always enjoyed her privacy and having her secrets. And Hoyt is someone who wants the same. So in this, they're... if it's important, they trust each other enough to share it. And that's, it's different from the love that Navani and Dalinar have, because they do try and share everything. Because for Dalinar, the keeping of secrets and all, and keeping his life cordoned off like he used to was, one of the things that led to just the horrible relationship he and Evie had. And so they share. But Jasnah and Hoyt don't have those insecurities. Jasnah's insecurities are very different. Jasnah's insecurities are, does the Tin Man have a heart? And so it's a very different, very different relationship.
Thinking of herself as the Tin Man.
Yeah. But it's very good. It's very well written.
It's very interesting to see their relationship. I don't, just... because they're such different characters than we typically have seen. And it's one of those that neither of them is your typical person, but they work.
Yeah.
So I would be very interested in seeing how this whole thing progresses.
Well, and the fact that she doesn't have any real needs physically that she's really looking for. Like,
she's more of an emotional need.
Yeah, and so
or
intellectual.
Intellectual, yeah.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't have equals. But this guy's been around long enough. Brandon's talked about with a few different characters For example, Vasher, Zale, in Warbreaker, they talk about how he wasn't that great of a swordsman, but we've seen him fight. He's a master because, even though he doesn't have the natural talent that he would have, he's been around and practicing this for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, he becomes amazing. We see the same thing later on with Ishar, where he just is doing just
crazy,
impossible things because he's had so long to practice.
He's average.
And the same thing works with Hoyd. Because, he's been around a long time collecting information to the point where he's just kind of able to, he knows more than anybody around him because he's had more experience. Mm-hmm. And so, Jasnah can respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, a lot of people were speculating on her sexuality before all this anyway. And so when it comes out, she's from what the reading seems to be sort of
implying.
Asexual with hetero-romantic, I think would be the term. But
that sounds right.
It was very, out of nowhere, but it's just like, oh, of course it's Wit. Wit's the only person who measures up to her standards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's in the perfect spot to actually land her man. Or whatever you call Wit at this point. Man feels so mundane.
Yeah.
Indeed. So, something that's not mundane, Szeth and Nott. We get some really interesting we get an interlude from her, which is one of the few non-human interludes we've gotten. We got
a few
a few
book.
Other non-human. We've gotten a few other non-human.
Because we got
non-humanoid.
Yeah, because we got this book. This was the book of that. Because we got Szeth and Nott, we got Syl, and Cheery.
Cheery.
Like we got a huge variety of them.
But Szeth and Nott, particularly since we got a viewpoint from her, we were wondering in Oathbringer, can we trust her? I think there's at least a degree to which we can trust her. Mm-hmm. She's still out for herself and doing what she wants, but it's interesting to see there's a little bit more to her than we expected. And she contacts Taravangian.
Well, she first gets contacted by Odium, and that was so interesting. Because she she's the first one to give us an insight into the fact that he's vulnerable. It's one of those things where because we hadn't really seen him as vulnerable, because every other time we get a viewpoint with Odium in there, it was either from Dalinar's perspective, Taravangian's perspective, or Venli's perspective. And all of them are mortals who only see so far. And even Taravangian, who saw the furthest, was just like, we can't win.
He saw some weakness, so he's like, his dumb Taravangian fooled him.
Because he couldn't see Renarin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was the big reveal of Oathbringer as far as implications. But it was just one of these things. But Szeth and Nott, she sees him for what he is. And not weak. I think the word she used was not weak, but vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. No, so it's just interesting. And that's when, I believe, who originally tries to get the stones, the gems that have the corrupted sprint in them? How do those get to Taravangian in the first place?
Wasn't it Renarin who delivered them?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, because then Renarin said, "I'm sorry," Which, given Renarin's future sight, who knows what that even means? Is that I'm sorry because he knows he's going to become Odium? Is that I'm sorry because he saw that he's going to die? Is it I'm sorry because he's a pawn in some cosmic game? Who knows what Renarin saw?
Indeed.
That's like the question with him all the time. What did Renarin see? We don't know.
And now there's another corrupted truth watcher out there. So it's just really interesting to see where this is all going. And then Taravangian wants to talk to Szeth. And so he basically asks for an oath stone. He doesn't call it an oath stone, but he asks for a stone like, that has these properties. And Szeth hears about because Taravangian doesn't know who Szeth is. He just knows he's there, right?
No, he figured it out because of Dalinar's guard that had the too big of scabbard, and he put it together. Showing it once again, Taravangian, even in his dumb state, is still not as dumb as people think. But the thing I love about it is it's because he's put together that Odium is vulnerable, and he's like, wait, it's the sword. The sword. Wait, but he's been around Renarin, which means he can't see him. Oh, okay. How do I get to talk to him? Because there's no way they're going to just let him talk to him. And it's him trying to engineer it, and then it just bites him in the rear. It's like, yeah, well, remember how you kicked this dog a lot and used him and abused him? Yeah, that dog bites back.
He doesn't like it.
Isn't he trying to get Szeth to use the sword against Odium?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
There's no way Taravangian would think to himself, no, I should use the sword. Taravangian can barely stand up.
Right. And so all of us are thinking, ooh, we're going to have a Szeth fights Odium fight. This is going to be awesome. This is going to be so cool. He smashes the gyms. Odium shows up. And instead, because he's given up. Like, every single thing that Taravangian's doing at this point is kind of admirable. He's being very, very selfless.
Well, this is his day of ultimate compassion.
Ultimate compassion.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, like, even just once he's imprisoned, period. He's basically, I've made the ultimate sacrifice. My role in this is done. I'm
just kind of in
over.
Well, that leads to a very interesting conversation between him and Dalinar. With the Dalinar being like, no, you want me to kill you because, then you die, like, oh, I was right all along. He's like, no, you're not. This was the wrong thing. Had you just helped us, we could have stood up to him. And you know what? I'm going to let you live just to prove it. And you're just, and you're like, yep, just to prove it. And he's like, well, I'll be glad then if I'm wrong. And it's like, will you? If it turns out you've done all this horrible stuff and it wasn't necessary, will you be happy? And suddenly Taravangian's like, oh, I kind of don't want him to be right. Like, he's right. I don't want him to be right because that's horrifying to think about.
I don't like that. Yeah.
But, it's
again, we always ask the next question. Who is Dalinar manipulated by? Who is Odium manipulated by? And you're just like,
Taravangian.
And that Renarin only exists because of in the state he is, a lot of it probably because of how Dalinar quote unquote raised him, which that's the reason he goes to the Night Watcher, and just all these players, all these pieces, all in the same room, all manipulating by one person who chess master is just not a good enough word for her.
Well, and we know to the point where, remember when Dalinar came to see her, what did she offer him? A sword that bled black and could not be defeated?
The Night Watcher did, not cultivation.
Right, but the Night Watcher is cultivation's underling.
Yeah. It's because she's like, what? I was gonna do it, mother. She was very whiny, mother. I was gonna do it, mom.
Mother. But yeah, and so he smashes open the gemstones, which gets Odium's attention.
He's mad.
Odium yoinks him into... and this is all on his day of ultimate compassion. Odium yoinks him into the
Dream,
cognitive
whatever
realm.
thing? Or
Or into a vision, or into something. But they're close to...
It's that space between... I think it's probably very similar to
the moment. To the Stormfather's moment.
Which I take it... Like, it is cognitive, but I think it's cognitive bleeding over into the spiritual.
Yeah, I think so, too. So he yoinks him in, and Taravangian looks over, and he sees the sword there, because Nightblood being Nightblood is just
He's right
all
there.
kinds of horrifying no matter where he is. And so he grabs it and... he's just like, I know what I'm going to do. Stab.
That's it says something
And
how
again,
pissed off Odium is that he rips him into the dream and doesn't even like look to see where he is at the time. He's so mad. You'd think Odium should have noticed that Nightblood was there. He's just so incensed he doesn't care.
And again, this isn't necessarily a selfish act on Taravangian's part, because he wants to destroy Odium, so he grabs Nightblood and stabs, which kills him, kills Taravangian
The host, yeah.
and Race. And Taravangian's here, and he sees this power.
Taravangian
and
was killed by Szeth on the other side.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, because we had... Cause you and I had this conversation where we're like,
this scene just sort of
did Taravangian
fried
die?
my brain.
And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go back
Right.
and look, and I go back and look, and it somehow made it less clear.
It says the words.
He definitely died.
But it says the words Taravangian died.
And from Taravangian's perspective, Szeth killed his body in the physical realm, but then he gets pulled into the spiritual realm, and the whatever Nightblood does consumes both Taravangian's body and Race's body, but Race is the more substantive thing.
Body.
And
Corporeal.
yeah, and so it's actually Race's corpse that they see on their side. Like, there's a lot of weird dominoes that are falling.
Yeah.
But the whole point is, because it's not like in all his things, we never hear Taravangian talk about vessels. I don't think he knew that
No.
Yeah.
that Odium had a
He's-
vessel, that this was something that could be taken up. This wasn't him trying to get the power of Odium. He had no clue
No.
in that state anyway. Who knows what
But then
smart
what happens
Taravangian
is-
did?
Yeah.
But what happens is suddenly Taravangian's there. The shard of Odium, vesselless, is there, and he's like, well, I'm going to take that, And suddenly everyone's nightmares are 100 times worse than they thought.
Yeah.
Well, no, I keep going back to it. The very first line we ever read from the diagram. You need to control everything. And we thought they meant all of Roshar, and it turns out, oh no, we weren't thinking big enough.
Now here's a question. Is his metal, is it Taravangium or is it Taravangianium?
I want it to be Taravangium.
I think that sounds better.
Yeah. The
But
one that's not
Taravangianium
hard
is-
to say.
Follows more the rule.
I want it to be Vargonium.
Vargonium? I like Vargonium. I'll
can do
allow
that, yeah.
Vargonium.
Fargonium. We can do that.
And then Taravangian meets somebody.
I have the page
He-
open.
Yeah.
Okay, read it.
Because this was so good. Taravangian grew more capable by the moment. The power molded him. As he bridled it, he stepped to the edge of infinity, studying endless possibilities as if they were a million rising suns, and he were standing on the bank of an eternal ocean. It was beautiful. A woman stepped up beside him. He recognized her full hair, black and tightly curled, along with her vibrant round face and dark skin. She had another shape as well, many of them, but one deeper and truer than the others. Do you understand now? She asked him. You needed someone who could tempt the power, Taravangian said, his light gleaming like gold, but also someone who could control it. I asked for the capacity to save the world. I thought it was the intelligence, but later wondered if it was the ability to feel. In the end, it was both. You were preparing me for this. And then further on, let's see, where was that one?
Now,
quote?
that line about one shape that was deeper, truer, I think that's the dragon form, because Brandon has confirmed that Corvelium Avast, a.k.a. Cultivation, was a dragon.
Yeah.
So she's the second dragon that we have met in some form or other in the Cosmere. The first being Frost.
Yeah.
We don't know what Honor was, right?
We don't know.
There's some wonders now because of his name being...
Well, his name is Tanavast, and her name is Corvelium Avast.
I just think he took her last name because when you marry a
Why
dragon,
not?
you take the dragon's last name. No, this other line I loved in his conversation with him. They showed you this possibility, I assume, Taravangian said, looking at infinity. But this isn't nearly as certain as I imagined it. It shows you things that can happen, but not the hearts of those who act. How did you dare try something like this? How did you know I'd be up to the challenge? I didn't, she said. I couldn't. You were heading in the direction. All I could do was hope that if you succeeded, my gift would work, that I had changed you into someone who could bear this power with honor. That is very, it's lowercase honor in case anyone's wondering, because obviously
yes.
that matters.
Quite a bit.
But it's just very interesting that Taravangian, who was obsessed with how far he had seen, now can see so far and now understands how limited it is. And I love that line. It doesn't show you the hearts of those who act. And so so apparently Future Sight lets you see the possibilities, but it doesn't let you know like inside how these people feel. So it's in some ways it's sort of like a combination of burning adium and burning brass, like emotional allomancy. You can try and manipulate them into a spot, but you don't know exactly how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
Then the final line I love. He was finally free of the frailties of body and the position that always controlled him and defined him. He finally had the freedom to do what he desired. And now, Taravangian was going to save them all.
Oh, gosh. This reminds me of that episode of The Simpsons. Jordan, you and I were actually talking about it, where Lisa tries to help Mr. Burns become a better person, and she creates he becomes worse than she ever imagined.
It is
like
one of
he's
the
trying to
funniest
be
things
good,
ever.
and he's just like destroying everything around him. He's like, I don't understand. I thought I was doing a good thing.
What was it?
And
Little Lisa's slurry.
Something slurry. I think it's Lil, L-I-apostrophe-L. You know, so,
He repurposes all the soda pop cans to make a horrible net that captures like everything.
whales and dolphins and just everything, and just, it's monstrous. And I just, like, that's sort of the feeling I get with Taravangian in this new state. It's just like, oh no.
But the thing is,
I'm going to help them all.
but this is the thing. So when we get through Mistborn's secret history, we finally get to see the full scope of the chess match between Ruin and Preservation that they've been playing for centuries. And trying to use each other's pieces against one another, and it's this complex dance. And in the end, they sort of both do, because Ruin's best piece was Kelsier, and in the end, Preservation used him. But at the same time, Vin was Preservation's best piece, and Ruin used her at the same time. So they just kept playing with each other's toys, and we thought, wow, the chess match going on here. This is the next level above that. And it's so well played by Cultivation that she prepped him for this, that she had him take the power, and all of us are sitting here like, what has she done? And I don't think she knows what she's messing with. The more horrifying idea, she knows exactly what she's messing with. What's her goal?
Oh gosh, no. Yeah, I am really concerned. Like, because up to this point, I've really, really liked Cultivation, or who I imagined Cultivation to be. She's very different than I imagined. I still want to root for her. I'm not in the... Because I think that whatever she's up to, I think she's on our side. But I don't know what she's up to.
I think it's foolish to say any shard is on anyone's side other than Harmony, and I only say that because his two powers are so far against one another that he's mostly kept himself.
Yeah.
And
he's
so,
a lot younger than the other shards, so
yeah,
that makes it less.
I think anything... I've said it a bunch. Every virtue taken to an extreme becomes a vice. And I just don't think we should trust any single shard, because I think all of them they're being pulled too far in one direction. Moderation is necessary for anything to be good.
You're probably right. The idealist in me is still holding on.
There's also the risk of, like, when you're a shard, you're thinking of huge scales, and we're people, and so we are concerned about characters and little pieces in comparison to what a shard is dealing with. And so maybe Cultivation and the other shards are looking at it and going, here is the ultimate big path, which is good for the whole, but it would mean that all the characters and everything that we as readers care about isn't big enough for it to be a big enough effect for the shards' viewpoint.
Right.
Now, to counter my own point, it could also be Cultivation does have a plan, and the plan is ultimately a good plan, and we've used Taravangian to put him in the perfect spot to do maybe not the most good, but where he'll be the most useful for whatever her great plan is. But we just have no clue what her end game is. Like, why would you set up the pieces like this at all? Mm-hmm. And it's clear that she is trying to do something, and we just don't know what it is.
Because
for all
she may be trying to face off against the other big bad that we don't know about.
Yeah, for all we know, maybe Bavadin is what she views as the actual big bad, and
that's what I view as the big bad right now.
And if that's
my personal view.
And if that's the case, Cultivation may have said, "Okay, in order to beat him, I'm going to need this. We're going to have to deal with Odium. Okay, what can I do with that?" And then
I can switch Odium up.
Yeah, and she just but. I just think it's like, my gut tells me mistake to trust any shard other than Harmony, and even he's limited. Unfortunately, he's very limited.
Yeah,
that's the other thing, is there's a reason that Brandon is waiting so long to give us anything from the Shattering.
Yeah,
and so we don't know as much about the shards. Yeah,
it'll be interesting. Okay, let's take a step away from Odium and Coravellium Avast and their adventures in the Cosmere. Let's talk about Dalinar and the island of Dr. Moreau.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Because what?
Okay, first, at the Battle of Emul, Nail shows up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
I'd forgotten about that.
And he's just like, basically he's like, haha, and then Dalinar touches him, and it's just like, here are the moments of your life.
Well, he doesn't want to do it at first. At first, he's ready to, like, back out and go into Shadesmar and take the Mink with him, but then...
Well, I mean, he's facing down a herald, that's a very logical instinct to have.
And Szeth got, like, knocked away, or, like, Nightblood did, just kind of like, he got schooled by Nail.
Yeah. And Szeth doesn't really like the fact that he got beat so bad. Just really so handily.
Szeth is a little competitive.
Indeed. I mean, to be fair, this guy has been around a while. He's been around the block.
Yeah.
Well, and we now know that all heralds with a sword should be very, very dangerous things that you should respect.
Yeah. Even without a sword, they're scary. Yeah. Because they've been around, they practice. They're just,
they probably they probably know martial arts of all sorts.
They're Batman.
Yeah.
They don't have superpowers, but they're still Batman.
they're crazy Batmans, but yes.
But it was just interesting. He touches Nail, and suddenly it's, it kind of reminds me of Burning the 11th Metal, where we sort of see all these possibilities of who Nail, was, could have been, and all this other stuff. And Nail doesn't like it. Doesn't like it at all. And he's just like, he nopes out of there. And then there's like, well, we need to talk to Ishar. He can teach you things about being a bondsmith. And it's like, are we sure about that? Well, it's just one guy. How much trouble could it be? And it's just like...
he just treats the Blackthorn like a child.
And all the Windrunners. Like, these are Kaladin's best trained soldiers that they send there. And he's just like, and you're stuck to the ground, this, and that, and just sort of dancing around them like they're nothing. And then...
Well, and then he reaches out and he's like, wait, you're bonded to the Stormfather? No, that's mine. And he just starts to take it. And Dalinar's just like, wait, what is happening right now?
Not okay. Not okay.
Because
a bondsmith
he's just sort of
unchained.
Yeah.
Well, and it's terrifying because we know that what destroyed what's the planet? I'm blanking all of a sudden.
Ashen
was basically unfettered surge binding. Somehow. We don't know the somehow. But
although surge binding is their general term for any magic.
Yeah, but coming to Roshar, where they had honor to sort of limit it, like suddenly, it's not the same thing. And here's this guy going around with it's not the power of God, big G, but he's going around with, the powers of creation and connection and just sort of just whistling Dixie.
And he's crazy.
Yeah, and he's nuts.
Super crazy. He's like, ugh.
That is one complaint.
Too.
I have one complaint about Ishar. And it's how he temporarily becomes sane and then he just goes into mustache twirling villainy. And it's like, my enemy, and it's just like, it's weird enough that makes me wonder if some of this is an act. And Ishar might there's a line in the diagram that says one of them is almost certainly a traitor, which we tend to ascribe to Ja'anat and the Unmade.
Right.
And it's like, that's a completely vague term. What if it's referring to one of the heralds is almost certainly a traitor? Who's the one they've all been listening to? Like, it's just, there's some stuff in there. It's just like, there's...
It could go so many ways.
Yeah.
Well, part of me wonders if, because Nail is listening to Ishar unquestioningly,
yes.
right?
And even, Shalash keeps saying he's the only one of us who's sane.
He has the ability, he's over connection. Connection is one of the things he can do. He may be artificially increasing their trust in him.
It's very possible.
But you can do so many game-breaking things with connection. I mean, one of the things that we looked at the hemalurgic chart when it first came out, that we're like one of the, I can't remember which spike. I think it was like Duralumin or one of the spikes. Like there was a question, steals destiny question mark. He tried to do that to Dalinar. He tried to steal his destiny.
Density has popped him to him.
But he did it casually. Like he was going to be deciding whether or not he wanted to add cheese on a sandwich. I think I'll have this as well. And throw in some potato chips.
So anyway, the other thing is that I don't believe he had ever realized that he could open up a perpendicularity. Because Dalinar does that. And suddenly, if I recall correctly, Ishar was just like, wait, that's new.
I don't think that. I think that it's new is someone else being able to do it. Because the thing is, so what we see later, in the Island of Horrors, how he has to be getting the sprint somehow. I'm willing to bet that.
Well, there's an Oathgate.
There's an oath gate, but it sounds if the way he's casually wielding this power about it, to me, it seems the easier explanation is he's never seen another bondsmith do that, because we do know from the Stormfather that Dalinar's doing things that no other bondsmith has done before.
Right.
But this is different.
So I don't know that Ishar has done it before. It seemed almost just like he's like, well, that's new, but he sees it done once and suddenly he's doing it himself. I'm just like, oh gosh, he's even scarier.
Yeah, I don't feel like he opens up a perpendicularity to leave so casually if he's never done it before. Especially when he was
disagree.
winning.
I disagree.
But
No, because he does it when he's suddenly sane. So it's not when he's winning, it's when he's just like, whoa, this is weird. This isn't. And so he's just like, I got to get out of here. My hair's. The same thing happens when what's her name? Lift. She swears her oath in Edge Dancer. Nail does the same sort of thing. He gets a brief moment of sanity. He's like, I got to get out of here.
yeah, and I
think that's sort of what happened with Ishar.
Yeah, but it's just one of those things. It doesn't strike me as you would just go into a parallel universe if you've never done that before.
Well, he's probably been to Shadesmar before.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, I didn't realize I can open this right here. He's probably gone through the Oath Gates.
It strikes me as the person they're sending Dalinar to go learn from just seems to me more likely he knows how to do it.
He just may not have tried it in that particular method. I
don't know that that's the case. I'm not convinced that that's the case.
Well,
I'm sure we'll know more in
it's
book 5.
nitpicking and obviously not what people care about anyway with Ishar. It's I think people are more interested in what was in that stinking tent. That tent.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Like at first, they find the Windrunners and they think it's the Amiens. What are they called? Those something Amiens.
I am so bad.
The blue ones.
Syrian. Yeah.
The blue, and then there's like, what is this?
Actually, it's the Collector.
Yeah. And they start just realizing these are Sprens somehow in the physical realm. And we know that we see Ishar.
And very, very dead.
Yes, very dead. We see that Ishar, who so easily manipulates connection, is somehow bringing Spren in their physical bodies fully into here.
But they don't do well.
No.
Yeah, it's Natan is what they say, a blue caster, probably an Natan person. So.
Man, it is. Ugh. Well, so it makes perfect sense because it reminds me very much of Doctor Strange, the film, how he defeats Dormammu is he brings time, something that doesn't exist in that realm. It brings it with him. This is sort of the reverse. He's pulling something that is an essentially cognitive thing into the real world. Well, suddenly there are things in the real world that a body has to deal with that a cognitive body does not. Mm-hmm. And
oxygen.
Yeah. Well,
it's like a fish out of water.
Yeah. And it's just their bodies just break down. And it's just like, why is he trying to do this, though? Like, if this were Kelsier, I at least would see why.
I think it's along the same concept.
Yeah.
Is that he doesn't want to be trapped on.
He doesn't want to be trapped on Roshar. Mm-hmm. He's trying to figure out how to... Because he is a cognitive being.
Yeah.
That's stapled into a body right now.
Yeah, but right now he has no issues going back and forth between Shadesmar. So it's clear he's trying to learn some principle here that'll give him some other knowledge. I'm not quite sure what that is, but it's horrifying.
Yeah.
And I don't want to think about poor cryptics coming into our side where they don't
Oh, they don't. So many problems.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to say nothing of the what are the spren for the the Dustbringers, where like every time they move, like their body crackles with energy and reveals skin, and just like think of how painful just existing in the physical realm would be for these creatures.
That'd be horrible.
Are you talking about Ashspren or
Yes,
Dustbringers?
Those are the Ashspren, right?
Or are you talking about the Peak Spren that we see?
The Peak Spren have well, that'd be horrible too, as we see molten pieces of them whenever they move any joint. Oh, both of them would be
So many
awful.
problems.
Well, and I bet the cultivation spren come to our side, and I bet it's just like an octopus coming out of water, where it just suddenly
They can do for a little while, but
just blops
not
down.
forever.
It just it sounds like the worst body horror to take something that inherently doesn't have physical rules. I mean, we saw how weird it was in the
Starlight.
Windrunner city. Not Windrunner, the Honor Spren city,
Honor.
where gravity just
Yeah.
sort of changes directions on a whim. Like, imposing physical laws upon these inherently cognitive beings is so horrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, oh god, yeah. Ugh.
Ugh. Ugh.
All right, let's take a step away from this because it's icky.
But anyway, the other heralds say this is the sane one. That's the opposite version of the Stormfather being like, no. In combat, he's the average one.
Yeah, he's just okay.
The heralds
So
thinking
let's take a
he's the
step-
sane one is horrifying.
So let's take a step away from that though, and get back to Taravangian / Odium, Vargodium.
I like Odium 2.0. It's just nice and simple.
Toadium seems to be the term that the Cosmere
I hate that
the
one.
subreddit
No, I
has settled
refuse to
on.
use that one. I'll allow Taravodium, but Vargodium is my personal preference. And his little conversation with Wit.
I love,
course.
first of all,
Well,
the
with-
title,
with
Dirty
Wit
Tricks. So good.
With Wit and I'm blanking on her name, Design. Because Design is just wonderful. She makes me so happy. So they're just walking along, and Wit is expecting to, because he's expecting at some point Odium's going to reach out to him. And Odium does reach out to him.
Well, because
we kind of
he wrote his name on it.
And okay, well, that's the other thing we didn't talk about. We didn't even talk about Dalinar and the contract. How they actually worked out the terms with
Yeah,
with
it's like,
race.
It's like 3 days or something like that. Some
10
crazy,
days.
10 days. Some crazy.
Yeah, so
short
in
amount of
10
time.
days they're going to have their battle of champions for the fate of Roshar, essentially.
Oh man.
And we have one book until the end of this arc, and Brandon says it's going to come to, I can't remember if he said a satisfying end. I feel like he said satisfying, but maybe that's just the hopeful me.
That whole book's gonna be an avalanche.
Oh gosh, it is. It's going to be an avalanche. You start the book and you cannot finish. You cannot stop until you reach the end.
What if it doesn't actually end, though? What if this was Brandon's masterstroke to destroy us all?
Oh no.
We had a good run.
We did have a good one. Some say they're still reading.
Oh man. But there's so much speculation right now about what's going to happen, what's going on with this. The big speculation I've seen is that Odium is going to put a child as his champion. My huge worry is that it's going to be Gavinor.
Which is gonna be
If
sad
that is
it
true. It's a whole lot of speculation based on very, very little. But I was just like, if the storyline, if that theory of it being a child is correct, then I'm almost positive it would be Gavinor.
Because there aren't many other significant children.
The kid wants vengeance for his father's death.
And
He's little. He wants a sword. He wants to spend time with, and it's one of the only things that would get Dalinar just say, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
I can't do this.
Going to the theory that Taravangian is going to play for a tie, because a tie is actually the most beneficial thing for him. Keep the game going. Because the game ending with how terribly it was negotiated by Odium is bad for him.
Right.
One of the things that, going back to the Hoid thing that I find interesting, one, he's with the corrupted Windspren that Jasnah sent to Taravangian. Windspren are notoriously unobservant, but they saw something. In theory, maybe. But they sort of ran away, and who knows if they even saw anything. I just find it interesting that he is conversing with them. And by extension, probably conversing on some level with Jasnah. Or at least trying to.
And I wonder, if they saw anything, and I wonder if they'd pass it on to her, and that would get anything back to Hoid later, maybe.
Yeah. This is the first time we've seen, as far as we know, Wit get bested by anyone. We've seen him go to toe to toe with Kelsier, and it was child's play. It was easy.
Yeah.
And all these other people who have these Machiavellian schemes, and this is the first time we've seen Wit, at the very minimum, not seem to anticipate what was happening before it happened.
I am not entirely certain that Wit has been fooled. Like when the thoughts were taken, I don't know that Wit that Taravangian's attempted deception by removing the memories. I don't know that Wit is fully fooled by that. The scene cut off before we would have had enough information to let us know, I think.
No, but and probably on purpose. It's way more fun for Brandon if we're debating that. I lean towards that this is, it reads exactly as it read, that there isn't some ulterior Wit motive. And the reason I believe that is Taravangian also has been contacting Corvellium Avast. And she's training him in the ways of being, Odium. And we don't know her relationship with Hoid. And we don't know how...
They don't like... No, we do.
We do? Her?
She doesn't like him.
She doesn't?
She doesn't like him.
So, both...
Now, we don't know, like, whether it's actual hatred or she just, she's annoyed by him. Because he annoys a lot of people.
Yeah.
But he also refers to her as Slammer.
Yeah. But, one of the other things, she's playing a big chess game. One of the things that would be so annoying in any chess game would be Wit.
The wild card.
He's very difficult. And so I personally think that what we read is it's what it says on the tin, that Hoid got bested, just because I think, one, it's more interesting, I think, if he was, rather than, no, Hoid, once again, haha,
Oh, no, I don't think he won this confrontation by any means. But I don't think he's as beaten by it as he appears to be.
Oh, he'll
if that makes sense.
It's Hoid. He'll at the very minimum, he already's noticed that his perfect pitch isn't quite where it used to be.
I don't think he's as oblivious as I feel like the obliviousness at the end of that scene was him playing, not playing, toying, but like performing.
I don't think it was, but I also think that, give him a week, I think he'll start to put the pieces together. Now, he won't have the memory to figure out exactly what it is, but
I would hope that he had backups, the equivalent of investiture backups of whatever it was.
We know that he keeps breaths in a lot of different places.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that he can use breaths to store memory, very similar to a copper mine. It makes sense that he could do something like that, because investiture is investiture, but there's some implications that Wit has some form of Farukami already. I'd have to go back and read it, because when I first read that, I was like, what? And then I remember reading the justification for it, and I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, but it was a long time ago. And you wonder why he wouldn't just store it in copper. Then again, we saw the problem
It's
with...
stolen from you.
Well, and also, we can't trust words that aren't written in metal, so...
Yeah, Room was able to corrupt.
Yeah, so...
Or memories as they traveled from a metal mind to your own mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so...
My kind of hope is that whatever Taravangian, whatever, grabbed from him is going to twist his original goal or something. I don't know. That's my hope. Even though
the understanding of how I read it wasn't that he was able to take the knowledge from it. Because what he took was relatively small. He's just getting rid of his short-term
Just
memory.
the past few minutes.
Yeah, so it wasn't like there was some vast... Like, it's not like Hoyd was just suddenly like, where am I? Who am I? And pissed his pants, He just thought everything's going normal.
The thing is, we don't know what Hoyd did.
No.
Like how those memories worked and what he was doing. So there's so much that we don't know about the memories that Hoyd was storing and all how that works. There's really no way to know what's going on just yet.
What I love is the implication. Whenever this is done in fiction, I love it. That one of the problems with longevity is the brain is only supposed to store a certain amount. And so living forever, like it's actually horrible because you don't have the ability to comprehend eternity. You still have a mortal mind, even if you have an immortal body. And Odium plays with that. He's like, well, let's see. You need to store your memories somewhere because you're too long lived. And he's, it's very Taravangian, just trying to figure it out as he goes. And Hoyd being like, wait, he should know this already. What is going on?
Yep. Anyway, oh gosh.
But it's a dirty
We
trick.
barely scratched the surface, but there's a lot.
It's a dirty trick.
And so, yeah. So we do love hearing from our listeners, so please keep sending in questions. You can ask us about the Cosmere. You can drop us your ideas for topics you'd like us to discuss during the show. And while you're at it, we would love to hear your feedback about how you think we're doing, as well as any interesting theories you might have about what's going on in the Cosmere. You can send all questions and suggestions in a brief, concise email to cosmerestudies@gmail.com, and we could read it as part of the show. Or if you prefer to send us a physical letter or, a Valentine's Day card or whatever, we do have a P.O. Box at the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, P.O. Box 970063, Orem, Utah 84097. Also, we've got personal projects that we're each working on outside the show. Amy, why don't you get us started off and let us know what you have been up to lately?
So I've been kind of taking it easier on myself because I have what, quote unquote, mystery wrist. I've had an MRI and we don't know what's going on with my wrist. So I'm taking it easier on that regard. But
It sounds
my
like a
social
crappy
media-
prize.
It's super fun. Anyway, my Facebook is Coincidence Cosplay and Props. My Twitter is @CoincidenceCosp because my name is too long. My Instagram is @coincidence_cosplay, and my website, I guess I'll do my Etsy, is etsy.com/ shop / coincidence cosplay. And so I have dice for sale up there. I got a nice vinyl everything else cutter, a silhouette cameo force, so I'm going to be doing hopefully cooler stuff like that and putting it up on my Etsy as well, but we'll be figuring that out. So just check that out, and if you like plush dice, that's a cool thing to look at and I appreciate it. And my if you like Magic the Gathering, my husband does, his website is deckplan.io, and they are getting more features all the time, and you should check it out if you like Magic the Gathering. But as for my projects, I'm going to be playing around with my silhouette cameo. I'm going to be making my daughter the Noibat. I finished my husband's N7 hoodie revamp, whatever. I made him a second one, kind of. And just kind of doing random stuff like that and trying to get things off my to-do list. So, yep.
Cool.
Sorry about mystery wrist, though.
Oh, yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah. Jordan, how about you?
You can normally find me on twitch.tv/splicestream, where I stream mostly Amiibo content, but also XCOM content, which people should definitely be interested in because it's so much fun. Today we had a lot of fun on the stream because I invented 1920s reporter voice, and I did an entire match streaming as that. And let me tell you, that is exhausting. I don't know how radio people did it at that pace, like for at least for a couple hours back then. Because holy cow, I tried to keep that energy up, and just after one set, I was just like, oh my goodness, 1930s guy was way better vocal shape than I am.
Nice. Anything else?
No, that's good.
Okay. As for me, I've got another podcast with my friend Dylan. We talk about board games. It's called The Innkeeper's Table, and we come out with new episodes on Friday mornings. You can get it on all the major podcast sites, so go ahead and listen to us there. You can also check out our Instagram page at Innkeeper's Table Podcast. We haven't updated it in a while. I really need to do that. But in our most recent episode, we talked about programming as a board game mechanic. And the next episode, there's going to be a spotlight on the game Mechs vs. Minions. This game was put out by Riot Games, and it takes place in the same universe as League of Legends. Yes, that you heard me correctly. It's a board game based on the lore from League of Legends. I do have several board game reviews over on www.innkeeperstable.com, and I post about games on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at @innkeeperstable. For those of you who want to support the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, but you can't become patrons, we'd love it if you just let your friends know about the show. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and to like and subscribe over on youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. If you want to toss us a good review wherever you listen to us, we'd love that too. Any final thoughts on this before we close out for the evening, guys?
There's too much. There's just too much.
We seriously could have done an entire episode, and who knows, maybe we will, on every single one of these characters, even with just what's in Rhythm of War, because all of these characters, while they didn't have as many scenes as Navani or Kaladin, their stuff was so rich with Cosmere implications in the case of Taravangian, Dalinar, Ishar, and with just insanely interesting plot implications in the case of Jasnah and Szeth.
And everyone.
Everything.
Just everyone. So much happened. And yeah, like there were so many moments where it's just like, is this the part where Brandon was saying you're going to go, oh, that's the main scene that he's been waiting for 20 years to write. And there were just so many of them. And yeah, I'm looking forward to, is it time for book 5 yet?
He needs to finish.
I mean, he only said it should be like, 2024 or whatever when we get it.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. In addition to the live episodes of the show that stream on twitch.tv/innkeeperstable every 2 weeks on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, listeners can find our videos on YouTube or audio versions of the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and just about any other service that carries podcasts by searching for Cosmere Studies. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the profile @Cosmere Studies. And if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions for the show, email them to cosmerestudies@gmail.com. For our next episode, we are going to dive into everyone's favorite mysterious character, Thydakar. Yeah, that's right, the Lord of Scars himself. You figure out what I mean. You'll definitely want to be there for the live chat, so be here in 2 weeks on March 1st, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern at www.twitch.tv/innkeeperstable. Until then, on behalf of Amy, Jordan, and myself, thanks for listening, and remember,
There's always another secret.